Hello, you've got me on my computer today. Getting a bit late in the day, but I really wanted to send this video out because I've actually bumped into one of my clients earlier on today was asking me about this, and got quite a few bits of feedback wanting the next instalment. So I spoke to you yesterday about how the roles of two hormones, cortisol and insulin, how these two hormones affect the gathering of fat around our belly regions, both the superficial stuff that we see that we don't like the look of, but more importantly from a health perspective, the visceral fat around our organs beneath our stomach muscles, that leads to chronic conditions later on in life that we just don't want. And if you're genetically predisposed to these conditions, you already have high risk factors, so you have to manage these through a lifestyle as much as we can. So I spoke to you about the roles that cortisol and insulin play, and basically helped you understand, hopefully, the fact that these two, neither of these hormones at a heightened level for a prolonged period are good, but coupled together is where we see the effect of abdominal fat storage because of the switching off of the cortisol fat degradation aspect. So what I want to look at today is how we control these, so how we keep our insulin levels low and how we keep our cortisol levels low. So one of the most important and influential ways we can control our insulin is through our diet, and I'm hoping that won't come as a surprise to a lot of you. That should, for those of you that have followed me for a while, that should be well known. It's the the processed and refined carbohydrates that we have in our diet that lead to insulin spikes. Okay, so it's the chocolate bars, it's the white pasta, it's the white bread, and these in large volumes as well. That it's the type of carbohydrate, but it's also the volume of that has a big impact on our insulin. So we need to choose our carbohydrate sources from a high fibre, whole grain, natural, unprocessed source as much as we can. So we want to look to our vegetables for our carbohydrates as much as we possibly can. Some of them are a lot richer in carbohydrates than others, but they have natural digestive fibres that automatically reduce the digestion process and reduce the speed at which the blood is released into the sugar. The sugar is released into the blood. You can tell it's getting late. And that's what we want from an insulin perspective. We don't want insulin to have to be secreted to get masses of sugar out of the blood. We want to keep a constant sugar level in the blood as much as possible so that the pancreas isn't working overtime. And there's a really good video, actually, I'll fish out for you, that is about the effect of constant peaks of insulin on the pancreas and how this can lead to type 2 diabetes eventually. Very, very good video. Good for your kids to watch as well, actually. So we've got that side of it, but we've also got exercise, and people don't realise the effect that exercise can have on insulin reduction and insulin control. Taking regular, moderate to high intensity exercise, several times a week, that includes both the strength training component and the aerobics component, the type of stuff we do at Fit Mums, is really good for controlling your insulin levels. So if you have a lifestyle that is not centred around exercise, and exercise isn't something you do regularly, it's going to affect your insulin levels. So that's another part that we don't often think about. We think about the diet side, but we don't think about the exercise side as far as insulin goes. And high intensity interval training also boosts the release of the growth hormone, which is another completely different hormone, but again really good for tackling abdominal fat. So you've got that extra whammy there from doing your high intensity stuff, which is why we bring that into the programs. Cortisol. So discussed insulin, cortisol. One of the important ways important things, going back to diet again, that we need to watch as far as cortisol is concerned is that we don't calorie restrict too much. Okay, we're not starving our body of what it needs, and we're not going for extra long periods of time in between meals that are increasing our stress levels, because they do. Now, having said that, people can cope with different periods of time in between meals. I say this a lot, we're all as different on the inside as we are on the outside. I can't go for more than 4 to 5 hours without food, regardless of the type of food that I'm eating, whether that be high protein, high fat, carbohydrates. That's just my body type, okay? If it's obviously refined carbohydrates, that time's going to be reduced. But even if I eat a well-balanced meal that's good quality protein in it and a decent amount of fat, I'll still need to eat about 5 hours later. Some other people can eat twice a day or even once a day and it doesn't bother them. So it's the period of time that induces the stress response and consequently the cortisol that you need to look out for. So it's understanding your body and understanding how frequently you need to eat, what serves you, and making sure you eat to that, okay? The other thing is we come back to exercise again, and it's especially for us in our 40s. I'm 43 in a couple of weeks' time, and people in our prime of our life. We've got to keep exercise short and sharp, okay? Now, I know that some of you aren't going to want to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's been proven time and time again. The long, low, steady endurance type exercise, such as marathon running, for example, and I know for some of you it's going to be music to your ears because the last thing you're ever going to do is run a marathon, is not great for our cortisol levels, period. It may relieve you in other ways. It may be a stress relief. It may, it may be, I don't know, something that you enjoy. But for a lot of people, especially women as they go into their 40s and beyond, that long period of low intensity endurance exercise gives us an elevated cortisol levels for the whole of the period of the exercise we're doing. So when we're doing the short, sharp, high intense stuff, exercise by the sheer nature is going to elicit a cortisol response, okay? Not because it's a stressful experience on our body up here, but because it's a stressful experience on our body physically, and that's why the cortisol is released. So keeping your exercise short and sharp is a key, which is why we do the in and out, high intensity, in for a minute or two, out again, rest-based exercise, okay? A huge one when it comes to cortisol levels is getting enough sleep, okay? So again, individual completely. Some people can survive on 4 hours, some people can survive on 10. If you are getting enough sleep. And if you are sleep deprived, automatically you are increasing your cortisol levels. So can't be overstated enough that sleep has a huge sleep deprivation has a huge impact on increased cortisol levels, so you need to watch that. Enough vitamins B, C and magnesium as well from a dietary perspective. Deficiency in any of these or our body not getting enough on a daily basis can increase our cortisol levels, so make sure you're getting enough vitamin B, several vitamin Bs. There are multiple vitamin Bs, vitamin C and magnesium in your diet. Limit your caffeine and alcohol. Both of these, so when we talk about stress, which is your cortisol is released as a response to stress, we're talking about nutritional stress in the last instance, and we are when we talk about caffeine and alcohol, okay? So we talk about stress and we think about, I don't know, being stuck in a traffic jam or our children winding us up or pressures at work. We have nutritional stresses, we have emotional stresses, we have physical stresses, lots of different types of stresses. Alcohol and caffeine both put a physical stress on our body through nutritional choices, and they both increase our cortisol levels. So if you're looking to watch your cortisol, you're looking to watch that abdominal fat, two other things that you need to watch your intake of, and they're caffeine and alcohol. And the last one, and probably the biggest one, because I've spoken about stress a million times in this, is manage your stress levels. So then we're talking about emotional stress. We're talking about mind stress. We're talking about that running around like a headless chicken, not knowing whether you're coming and going. We're talking about snapping at family members. We're talking about feeling dog tired when you wake up. We're talking about being on your knees at the end of the day because you're just constantly going. Getting time out to chill the hell out, okay? It's the biggest thing you can do for your cortisol levels. On a daily basis, some meditation, some journaling, some reflection time, some quiet time, some me time, to just slow the pace of everything down. You can almost feel the cortisols lowering while you do this kind of activity. So that's probably my biggest take home on if you think of cortisol, you want to think of stress. Anything you can do to manage your stress levels is going to reduce your cortisol. Okay, I hope that answers some questions for you. There's a lot of information in there. Obviously, for those of you at Fit Mums, if you want any more information on any of this, grab me and I'm happy to bore you to death on this subject. But bear in mind, cortisol, insulin, the pair of them together are a bugger as far as abdominal fat's concerned. You want to concentrate on lowering your levels of both in order to get a handle on it. Okay, that's it, all for me. Bye-bye.